Liz. Hi to our
Hello, Lucy.
audience. Hello, I love that intro. It gave me goosebumps.
Me too. I've never seen it before. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
have
I
you
love what
not?
they did. No, it's fantastic.
Okay. Well, I'll start by saying huge thank you to Barnes& Noble for having us. Huge thank you to our audience. I can see we've got loads of people watching. That's really exciting, as they should. And thank you to Liz for letting me interview you this evening, this afternoon. I think it's this afternoon in the States. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, right back at you. I know we're in the same time zone, I think, but it's midday or 3 o'clock
Yeah,
where our viewers are watching. So we'll try and perk up and be awake for them.
it's
But
kind of
thank
glass of
you.
wine time here. I feel I've got water, but I feel it should probably
Yeah,
have.
I've got water too, and I should have.
We're
Yeah,
so
we should have planned
studious.
this.
We should have. We should have. So I'll just start off by introducing Liz, who is a huge writing hero of mine. Liz Nugent has worked in Irish film, theatre, and television for most of her adult life. She is an award-winning writer of radio and television drama and has written critically acclaimed short stories, both for children and adults, as well as the best-selling novels Unravelling Oliver, Lying in Wait, and Little Cruelties, and they are all bangers and you should read them all. She lives in Dublin and has won 4 Irish Book Awards, as well as the James Joyce Medal for Literature. Strange Sally Diamond, I have to say, has been a huge success over this side of the pond already. We were lucky enough to have it first. But I also have to say that it is a Barnes & Noble monthly pick for August for the mystery and thriller category. So huge congratulations. How does that feel?
It's a career high, to get the Barnes and Noble to get into that, into that coveted position is, I guess beyond my wildest imaginings. It's fantastic to
It's
get
so
that kind of promotion is huge in the book world.
It's so exciting, and I imagine so exciting to see it appearing on social media. And but I feel like Barnes and Nobles are so great at kind of posting pictures of the books
I
in.
know. I can't tell you how many Barnes and Noble branches I have befriended on Twitter or on Instagram because I keep posting about the book. So I'm friends with most of the Barnes and Nobles across America, and if I'm not, I'm sorry. I'll get to you.
There are literally hundreds. It's so exciting. So let's dive right in. Your novels often start with often shocking opening lines, I would say. And what I love about the opening of this book is as a writer, it was just such a masterclass in how to get so quickly to the kind of the heart of a character, their personality. Would you be willing to read the opening line for us, the opening passage?
I sure will. Okay. Put me out with the trash, he said. When I die, put me out with the trash. I'll be dead, so I won't know any different. You'll be crying your eyes out. And he would laugh, and I'd laugh too, because we both knew that I wouldn't be crying my eyes out. I never cry.
So that brilliant first couple of lines, had me absolutely hooked from the off. And I was sort of reading those first few pages almost between my fingers because I was sort of fascinated and gripped, but also I don't want to give too much away, but hoping that she was going to get away with it. Without giving too much away, can you explain what's happening at the outset of the book?
Okay, well, when we first meet Sally, she's 42 years old. She's living with her widowed father in a very remote part of the country. He's her adopted father. And she finds him, he's taken to the bed for at least a month before this happens. And she goes up one morning, she finds him dead. And so she goes about looking for a garden waste bag to put his body into, because he had said, as I just read, when I die, put me out the bins. Now, he was saying this very casually, but he should have known better. And in fact, he had written instructions, but Sally doesn't see them until quite a while later. He had written instructions for his funeral, but Sally takes him at his word and tries to dispose of his body by putting it into the domestic incinerator. And thereby she comes to the attention of her local community, and then the police, and then the world's media, who seem to know a lot more about her than she does herself.
So brilliantly put. And I think what it also immediately kind of set up for me was the fact that things are so dark and they're going to get darker. You've also got this kind of humor to counterbalance it. It's never, I feel, at Sally's expense, but you do have this sort of wonderful, humorous kind of this kind of levity to
Oh,
counteract that darkness.
yeah, even when she's describing what she's doing, and trying to heave him across the gravel, and it's kind of icy out there, and the she's afraid the bag is going to rip. She's very practical. She's
Yeah.
very, she's unemotional and practical, and therefore you get a real sense of her character, that she doesn't respond to things in the quotes normal way, and you get the sense that she's a little neurodivergent, or there's something going on there. But of course, it's only when we get into her deeper story and into her childhood before she was adopted, that we realize the reasons why she is so different, why she is so reclusive, and why she pretends to be deaf to avoid any interaction with
I mean,
people in
I
her
sort of,
community.
sort of love the idea of doing that with really annoying people. I'm going to try that one day.
My dad used to do that. Yeah.
Amazing. Or not to understand the language. Um, so let's talk a bit more about Sally herself, because I think you'll forgive me for saying that you often write. I mean, I absolutely love your protagonists. They are just a masterclass in character, but you are perhaps known for writing quite dark, even psychopathic characters. But Sally, for all her kind of quote unquote strangeness, is very likable. I mean, even from that opening passage, immediately liked her. Was that something you kind of set out to do from the off?
Not really. I mean, it does turn out that she's the first likable character I've ever written. His first central character, protagonist, who's likable, that I've written. But I don't know if I set out to do that particularly. But as soon as I realized what I wanted to do was have somebody put somebody out with the bins. That was the first kind of idea that came to me.
Oh,
So
really?
I and then I thought, well, she's got to be a bit strange to do that. And then I thought, okay, how is she strange? And I didn't really want to diagnose her, because I'm not a psychiatrist and I'm not a psychologist. I have no background in those. So I thought it wouldn't be fair. And also, I have several autistic friends and they're all completely different. One of them might do something like that. The other three absolutely wouldn't. So I didn't want to sort of pigeonhole her, or diagnose her in any way. So I made up a background for her that would explain her very strange and weird behavior.
That's fascinating. So I was going to ask, that was almost going to be my next question. Did the novel kind of stem from her character, or was it a kind of central idea? But it sounds like actually it was that premise that it sort of
Yeah, well,
grew from.
my books are all very character driven, but you have to find the character first. And I did want a scenario whereby somebody would put a body out with the bins, or out with the trash, as the Americans say. So I wanted that to be really clear. But then I thought, well, what kind of person would do that? And then I came up with Sally. And once I had Sally's voice, when she says, "I never cry," then I knew who she was. And then I let her lead the way for the rest of the book.
Fascinating. I mean, I obviously don't identify with the huge trauma she's been through. I don't know how, maybe we can speak to some of that, but I don't want to be too spoilery. But I did find myself really identifying with her questioning of kind of correct procedure. This is just the way things are done, in terms of like, this is what you must do when someone dies. We're actually in the process of looking at kind of trying to buy a house, and it's just so complicated, and I sort of just wish you could kind of turn up with a bag of coins and do it that way, the old school way. I love her kind of frustration with certain kind of social niceties, like the sort of performative goodbyes at the end of a phone call that sort of have me kind of nodding.
I know.
Did you identify with her yourself? Well, did
Well,
you put some of yourself into Sally?
yeah, I mean, she said at one stage, she says, she's talking about her clothing and what she wears, and she says, I don't wear bras. I don't know why so many women insist on them. They're really uncomfortable. And I just thought that's so true.
It's so I almost itched when I read that. I was like, oh, they are. She's right. What?
They're
Yeah.
really true. I just thought, why are we all conforming? Of course, we all do wear bras because they give us a shape or whatever. But and also she has a dread of shopping centers, which I absolutely share. Like
Totally.
shopping centers, big shopping malls with their bright lights and their loud music and their thousands of teenagers really scare the hell out of me. So, yeah, I was totally, there's a lot of me in Sally, I can tell you, apart from the really nasty background. But yeah, there's a lot of me in Sally. And I was able to say things that I can't really say as Liz Nugent, but as Sally Diamond, I could say them.
Oh, isn't it cathartic sometimes to do that through a character? I just think that's
Yeah.
kind of wonderful to air your sort of innermost thoughts. Um, I mean, I think this book in so many ways sort of transcends genre, but we are talking about the mystery and thriller book of the month for Barnes and Noble. So it really, really delivers on that front. You know, you've got kind of twists and turns, you've got this kind of dark buried backstory, really, really dark buried backstory. And I'm curious how you sort of approach the kind of trauma at the heart of the book. How did you research that? Did you research it?
To be honest, I did no research at all into those backstories and into situations like the one that happens in Sally Diamond, in Strange Sally Diamond. I just I tried to imagine what it would be like, what it would
Mm,
be like, because we hear it's not too spoilery. Let's call it what it is. It's kind of a Dugard situation, Fritzl type situation, where a man kidnaps a woman and keeps her captive and has children by her. So that's the backstory. And Sally is one of those children. And we have heard from the women who are the kidnap victims in these situations, but I don't think we've ever heard from the children of
no.
those relationships. So I thought, wouldn't it be good to hear from the children? But I didn't want to actually describe anything that might have happened. So I had Sally's psychiatrist father almost kind of sedate her for over a year so that she wouldn't remember. So
Mm,
her first memory is at the age of 7, living with these adoptive parents, and she has no memory of anything before that. And because she has no memory, she's not particularly curious.
mm,
Um, and I just kind of thought, well, if I was a psychiatrist father of this child who I just adopted, who had been in this dreadful situation, and if I had the power to erase those memories, would I? And I kind of thought, yes, I would. I
mm,
probably would,
mm,
until
mm.
she was old enough to handle them. But then the older you get, when is the right time? When would be the right time? And then, she's never told
No.
until after he dies. And then he has left her some a lot of information about her background, but he's left out a lot of information too.
Absolutely. And I thought it was fascinating that the thing that really triggers this sort of onrush of memories for her is the teddy bear, isn't it? It's this sort of, it's kind of almost totemic. I don't know. I thought that was so
Yeah,
cleverly done.
it's kind of it appears in on 2 continents and in 3 generations of the same family. Am I right? Yeah, one, two, 3 generations of the same family who have all gone through horrific things, and like brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and nieces, a niece of the kidnap victims. So yeah, it goes through the generations, but it was really um I kept forgetting about him, and then thinking, God, where's Toby? Where's Toby? And then having to kind of trace, okay, I need him to go back to New Zealand. How am I going to get him back there?
Every
So
journey.
so it was great, actually. That was great fun to thread the teddy bear through the story.
Oh, and such a clever, I love that sort of texture, I'm thinking texture of as well, but that kind of textural sort of device in the book. It just works so well. Um, I appreciated, as someone who is a little bit squeamish despite writing quite dark books, I appreciated that there wasn't, it was, I suppose, off the page, as it were. Was that the really, really dark stuff? So we know about it, but was that kind of a conscious decision?
Absolutely. I mean, I am so squeamish about violence of any kind. I can't read it. Um, we had an Olympic winner yesterday who won a gold medal for boxing. I couldn't watch that much. I mean, I think she's wonderful. She's a wonderful Irish woman boxer, Kelly Harrington, who just won a gold medal at the Olympics last night. And I couldn't watch it. I went to bed at 10 o'clock and the match started at 5 past. But I can't watch it and I don't want to read it. And if I don't want to read it, I think my readers wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to write it. And
Sure,
I don't think my readers would want to read it.
sure.
Um, yeah, so everything that happened is implied. We know what's happened because
Mm,
we know the situation and we know, like, through doctor's notes, through dictaphone tapes that the psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist was her mother's psychiatrist before he was her psychiatrist. So we know all of the information of what might have happened, but I don't describe any of it, none of it,
no,
because I just don't want to go there, especially with children.
no, I appreciate that as a reader. Thank you. But at the same time, we have this kind of fascination with true crime, kind of all the grisly details. Do you think in this book there is a sort of message that you want to convey about the idea of crime as entertainment?
It's funny you should ask that. It's a really great question because I haven't thought about that, but yeah, I think it is very prurient what we're doing with people's real lives and the deaths of people or the disappearances of people, that they're now commodities for entertainment. I think you have to be so careful about treading the line. I mean, there was a case here of a murderer who I wanted to write a book about. And when I did a little research and realized the families of the two murder victims didn't want anything to do with a book or anything, I just said,
Mhm.
okay, I won't do it. I won't do
Sure.
it. Two other people have written
Oh,
that.
really?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
But I just kind of thought, no, I will draw the line.
That's a
Um,
kind of ethical,
yeah,
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 yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm not a big true crime fan, but I did listen to the West Cork podcast,
yes,
which was
yeah.
brilliant and brilliantly put together. The way they kind of structure the narrative of the podcast, I suppose. But I did keep thinking, this is a real
It's a
person, this is
dead woman.
a
Yeah,
real woman, and
yeah,
family and all of that.
yeah.
Um, did you go to some dark places writing this? And how did you put yourself in Sally's shoes?
Well, I did not so much in Sally's shoes, but in Peter's shoes, who's a
Ah, yes,
second
I want to talk about Peter.
narrator. Yeah, and there was some dark moments with him, particularly in a scene with his mother. And I took the advice of my brilliant American editors and took that scene out and I modified it a little bit so it was a little gentler. So yeah, it had been a violent scene and I toned it down completely. So it's no longer it's no longer a deliberately violent scene. It's more of an accident what happens, although his mother thinks he did it on purpose.
How much can we talk a little bit about the character of Peter? How much do you want
Of
to,
course.
can you
Uh,
introduce it?
Peter has the same birth parents as Sally, but he grows up in a totally different way. His story is he's he he's as much of a victim as he is a
Mm,
predator at the end of the
mm,
book, because his story is um, his father allows him a certain amount of freedom. So he's not kept locked in a room, but the kind of freedom oh, it's hard to talk about without
I
giving too much
know, I know. I
away.
was just here. I was
But
thinking,
yeah,
oh,
he
sorry.
he is he is told that he has an illness which
Mm,
stops him from communicating or having other friends or going to school or having any kind of normal upbringing. So the only example of manhood that he has is his father, who is a truly horrific psychopath.
mm,
And that's the only example he has. But he also has the genetics of his mother, who was just a normal, gentle, lovely little girl until she was kidnapped. So he tries really hard to do his best. He tries really hard to do the right thing. But when the chips are down, he has to make some very tough decisions. And I think you always get better drama when a character makes the wrong decisions.
yes. Absolutely. And so brilliantly done and so kind of uncomfortable, sort of at times, kind of empathize. I think you do that so well with your characters that you're taken to this place of empathy that you don't think you really want to go to as a reader, but you do. And it's such a wonderful, kind of immersive, uncomfortable experience. So brilliantly done. I imagine it must have been difficult in many ways to leave the world of this book behind in some ways, even though you do go to some dark places, but you've got this incredibly distinctive character in Sally. Do you still I can imagine, do you still sometimes hear her voice in your head? Do you still sometimes sort of find yourself seeing things in the way that she might see them? If that makes
Yeah, like in my head, I have an entirely kind of, I have Sally living in Carricksheedy. She, she has bought a new musical instrument. She's taught herself how to play. She's got very good. And I think it's probably the cello. I don't know why I just love
Oh
cello
yeah, I
music.
can see that. No, I can
Yeah,
see that.
I
Yeah.
think she bought a cello. It's a big instrument. Piano
Yeah.
was a big instrument. Piano was very important to her in the earlier part of the book. But she's bought a cello, and through YouTube videos and tutorials during the pandemic, she's taught herself to play. And at the end of the pandemic, when the pandemic is over, she gradually is kind of absorbed back into her community because her friends aren't going to let her go back to her old ways. And I think she's now teaching the local children how to play the cello, and that she's a particularly popular teacher because one of the great things about Sally, and the thing I love about her the most, is that she treats everybody the exact same way. She talks to children the same way she talks to adults, same way she talks to gay people, the same way she talks to black people, the same way she talks to everybody, like upper class people, lower class people. She has no filter. She doesn't put on
Yeah.
a different type of voice. She doesn't have any pretense about her. And I think that's a really adorable thing. And I think we could all do with being a bit more Sally.
I really loved her for that. And I think just that friendship that she has with the two little children right at the beginning is so, it's so endearing. It's so well done. And she almost kind of speaks to them on their level as well, I
Yes,
felt.
yeah, she
Um,
does. That was partly inspired a bit by Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird,
oh,
because he leaves little treats in the hollow of a tree, even though
yeah,
he doesn't communicate with them. But,
yeah,
he has an affinity for children and he saves their lives at the end of the book, but
yeah.
he doesn't ever speak.
And
Um,
I think it's not, it's not giving too much away, hope for you to say that, they've literally just smashed her windows, but she invites them in for biscuits and a chat. So that is so Sally. Yeah.
well, she's concerned about the little girl who's unconscious,
Yeah.
so she's not without empathy. And she
No.
also has a great sense of humor. There's very funny moments in the book, but it's Sally's observations, and I want the reader to be chuckling, saying, "Oh yeah, I actually think that I think that too," so that
Yes.
we're laughing with Sally and not at her, because it's very
Yeah.
important to me that she's not a figure of fun, um, that we're going with her, that we're seeing the world through her eyes.
No, and it's actually often other characters and the way they treat her that become the figures of fun, I think, or that, are exposed for who they really are. I think that's so cleverly done. It's kind of seen through that prism, rather than, the other way around. So a little bit about kind of your writing. One thing I love about your writing is just its concision. You feel every word is so carefully chosen. It's something I so aspire to, because I just feel like I throw the kitchen sink in there. That being said, were there any kind of darlings that you had to kill in writing this book, as it were?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a couple of scenes. It was 130,000 words originally.
Oh my
And I had
goodness.
to, yeah, and I had to knock it back to 100,000 words. So I lost, a quarter of it, I suppose, or I'm no good at math. Is it a quarter or a fifth?
I'm all left brain. I'm sorry, or right brain. I can't remember which one,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Okay. Yeah, I had to
very
cut 30,000 words basically. So there was a great scene where her friend set her up on a on a blind date, and she's furious with them. But I'll save that for when they make the TV series. And there was
oh,
another scene.
fantastic.
That's if they make the TV series.
Well, that
And
was
there was
funny.
another scene. There was
That
another
was
scene
going to
where
be.
she goes for a job interview, and it all goes very pear-shaped. But yeah, it doesn't go well because she blurts something out in the middle of the interview. But if it gets made into a TV series, there'll be plenty of room for all of that.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I find writing character that sometimes you need to write those kind of scenes, even though, in a thriller, you have to make kind of brutal decisions about what actually kind of makes it into the final book. But you need to write those scenes in order to have that kind of deeper understanding of character. It's like I heard this wonderful thing Maggie O'Farrell said, it's like the sort of scaffolding that surrounds the sort of final edifice of the book. I mean, what a wise woman.
Oh,
Uh, but I would love to see that. I would love to read those scenes. So TV adaptation, is there going to be one? Can we talk about that?
you know what? Everything gets optioned. Hollywood loves you. I think the message from Hollywood is, we love you, we love you, we love you. Silence. And I think a lot of writers will identify with that because
Really
yeah, it's all to play for. I will say nothing.
fantastic, but very, very exciting. I mean, I was kind of casting it in my head. So talking about the mediums, I know you're a big theatre goer. Were there kind of are there any sort of is there anything that sort of inspires you generally, inspires the world of this book in terms of things you've read, other writers you've read, things you've watched? That's a really wide range of
All of
questions.
the above, all of the above. Yeah, other writers, definitely, other writers like you, like
Oh,
Lisa
stop.
Jewell, like Mick
Lovely.
Herron, you know, Frida McFadden and
Yeah.
Paula Hawkins, and like all of these people that I'm mentioning, casually throwing their names away, have read this book and endorsed it. And I'm absolutely blown away that my writing heroes, of which you are one, would read my book and say nice things about it. I'm blown away by that. It's amazing to me that little old me sitting in my kitchen, scribbling away for years and years and years, and then suddenly I write a book that lots of people are talking about. It's
Oh,
amazing.
I mean, stop it. You are absolutely best in the business. You are like, if anyone asks me for kind of crime through, I'm like, this will, you transcend genre. You are just utterly brilliant. And you're so kind of brave, I think, in terms of your character, in terms of the subject matter. Yeah. So, I mean, you are just wonderful. But I think all of your books have been deservedly hugely successful. But I feel like this book, I think it was 9 weeks on the Irish Times bestsellers.
No,
Was it
it
even
was
more?
29 weeks. 29.
29,
Yeah,
29. Oh my goodness. Well, there we go. 29 weeks on the Irish Times
yeah.
bestseller.
Nine weeks at number one.
9 weeks
But
at number one. That was
yeah,
it. 9 weeks
and
at number one.
29 weeks in the top 10.
29 weeks in the top 10. Sunday
Yeah.
Times bestseller. Waterstone's book of the month in the UK. That's like our Barnes and Noble book of the month. I'm right in saying that, aren't I? It was
Yes,
Waterstone's book
yeah.
of the month. Now, Barnes and Noble book of the month. What do you think it is about this book? I mean, I know what it is, but what is it about this book that has really connected with people, do you think?
I think people are curious about You know, when I was a kid, I don't, you're a good bit younger than me, so it might have been different for you. But when I was a kid, we didn't have terms like autism or ADHD or Asperger's or anything. And there were people in my school who we just, we would refer to them as, oh, Sally is a bit odd. And
Mm,
that's the only thing that would be said about them. But they would be very much absorbed into the school, and maybe they preferred to eat on their own and they didn't want to have lunch. But I always kind of thought about those people with fondness,
yeah.
and I kind of wanted to write kind of from that, try to get into that mindset and write from that point of view. And of course, me being me, I had to make it a dark backstory. But yeah, I just felt I owed them that I hadn't seen them represented much until I read Eleanor Oliphant, and I just enjoyed that book so much. And yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And so I kind of did my own take on that
Mm,
type of character.
mm. And it's a wonderful, I think, argument for the fact that writing makes us more empathetic, reading makes us more empathetic. Read, put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
It's so
Harlan Coben was saying the other day, actually, I can't remember where his source was, but that if you do various things during the day, but one of them is 5 minutes of reading per day, um, improves your empathy
mm.
and improves your, and of course, I love Harlan Coben because he also said wonderful things about my book on the Today Show. So, you know, oh my God. So, but he then he had to clarify by saying, I don't mean just 5 minutes a day. He was
Yes, yes.
he was
5 minutes
asking me,
to start.
he
Yeah.
was just saying, like, 5 minutes, if you just read 5 minutes a day, it will improve your empathy. But then he was saying, no, not just 5 minutes. Like, if you can, you don't have to stop at 5 minutes.
Yes,
You can
yes, yes.
read on.
That's the
So I
start.
thought that was
Yeah.
very funny.
I mean, I don't want to get too political, but I do feel that a lot of people could do with reading, reading a bit more in their lives. I think the world would be a happier, more empathetic place for it. I have, as always, been really greedy and asked loads of my own questions, but I have so many questions from our audience that have been
Great.
sent in advance to ask you. So within the time that we have, I'm going to, I mean, there are some real crackers here. So I'm going to ask a few of these. Okay,
Okay.
so first one. Do you have a favorite character from your books? If you would go out and have drinks with one of your characters, who would it be? And that's from Donna O'Neill.
I think um, Barney from Unraveling Oliver. Barney was Alice's first boyfriend, and Barney was her first love. And when Oliver came on the scene, he didn't think he was good enough for Alice, so he just exited from her life because he thought he wasn't good enough, and he thought Oliver was this famous writer who would, give her a better life. And then he had to watch while Oliver, you know, did turned out to be a terrible person and treated her brother really badly. So yeah, I'd love to go for a drink with Barney from Unraveling Oliver and
Find
her
out
brother
too.
Eugene. Yeah.
Great. Um, what did you learn about yourself after writing this book? And this is from Katie Wastland.
What did I learn about myself? Hmm. I think I think I'm more empathetic than I gave myself credit for, because um so many people have I've met so many people who have thanked me for writing a character that is like them, or that is like their brother or their nephew or their grandchild or their sister or brother or mother, or
Mm,
yeah, that I seem to have captured a character that is very real to a lot of
mm,
people. And in fact, I got a letter from an actress who was desperate to play the part because she said that, you wrote my character, and, she really wanted to play the part. So put her in touch with my agent. We'll see. But I yeah, I think that's what I've learned, if anything.
What an incredible experience as a writer to have had that effect on people. Is that
Yeah,
ever
but on the other hand, I can also get my head into the mindset of a psychopath really easily, like I have in all the other books.
the
You know,
psychopath writing to you say thank you so much
yeah,
for
yeah.
yeah.
And what have I learned from those? I'm an inner psychopath. I'm an inner neurodivergent character. I'm an inner, like whatever I'm writing that day. I find it easy to, I think because probably I trained as an actor when I was a youngster, when I was in
Oh
my early
really?
20s. Yeah. I went to the Gaiety School of Acting and I trained there. And I think that really gave me some insight into how to play a character because you have to be them. Um,
So
so
proper
yeah,
kind of method
mm,
acting, sort of
yeah.
really.
And when I am in the mind of a psychopath, I just write like they would.
Do you find yourself kind of taking your coffee differently, or sort of does it bleed into?
It's funny, like as upsetting as anything I have written is, as soon as I close the laptop and walk away, it's gone. It stays in the laptop. Yeah, it's
So you're
fine.
not like one of those characters like a sort of Daniel Day-Lewis, not one of those writers like the actors we hear of, like Daniel
Yeah, yeah.
Day-Lewis, Jeremy Strong, I think it is.
Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Leave it at the desk. Um, out of all of your books, which one are you most proud of and why? And that's from Carla McClutchy.
I have to say Sally Diamond because it has struck a chord with so many people. I keep calling it Sally Diamond. It's called Strange Sally Diamond, but Sally Diamond is the character. She's the center of it all, and I feel mean now for calling her strange because that's the title of the book. But yeah, I think I she really has struck a chord, and it's sold into 32 territories at this stage. So it's resounding around the world, around the world, people are identifying with this character, and that certainly hasn't happened before. So yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations on it all. Uh, if you could be a character in Strange Sally Diamond, who would you be? It's a tricky one. And that's from Maria Flatty. Flatty.
I think Martha, the yoga teacher, because I'd love to be
Yes,
flexible.
yes, yes. And she has a kind of aura of zen about her, doesn't she?
Yes.
She does.
Yeah. And she's very happily married to this Nigerian guy, and she has two biracial kids. And she's the first person who makes an approach to Sally outside of the people that Sally knows. She's the first person that, the first time she meets Sally, she's like backing away carefully because
Yes.
Sally, it's the rumor is that Sally has murdered her father. So she's very nervous of her. But when, she meets her finally at her father's funeral, she's the first person who approaches Sally and thanks her for looking after her children. And yeah, I think she's a woman of huge empathy. And again, she's a yoga teacher. She's really flexible. I'd love that. I'd love to be able to leap around and
Yes, me
hop
too. Me too.
and
She said,
jump and be very
raise her
bendy.
shoulders.
Yeah,
You got like writer's slouch or
I
whatever you call
know. I
it. Yeah.
can't even do the first part of yoga with Adrian. I'm so
Yeah.
useless.
No, no, me neither. I feel like I am sitting a bit straighter as we speak. Um, oh, are you working on your next? So, how long did it take you to write a book? Are you working on your next one? Can't wait for it. And that's from Kathy Matthew.
I'm working on my next one, and it's not going to be published until 2026 for various reasons, but I am working on it, and I'm also working on a play. So
Oh,
I,
wow.
yeah, I have two projects on the go. Um, Fingers crossed for both of them. They're very much well, the play is in my head at the moment. I haven't actually started writing it, but the novel is underway, and yeah, it's oh, I don't know how. I'm not going to say anything about it actually because I'll only jinx myself.
Yeah,
Because if
that's
I say anything,
superstition.
yeah,
Yeah.
If I say anything, it might turn out to be completely different because my editors hate it. I don't know. I just keep quiet.
Oh, but exciting though. And do you often do that? Do you often find that you're able to work on kind of two projects simultaneously?
No, no,
No.
definitely not. No, that's why I
Ah,
haven't started the play. Play
right.
is up here. Like the book is in here in this laptop.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah. So yeah, but I'm thinking about it. So I could probably tell you more about the play since you're never likely to see it. But I think it's about um, a man who has been cancelled but doesn't see the error of his ways until an old friend comes to visit.
Oh, fascinating. Feels so kind of very much of the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
Oh, I want to watch
yeah.
that.
He's kind of been cancelled for um, kind of not rape, but kind of sexual harassment and bullying and that kind of stuff. And he's been exposed, but he blames all the women and all the that yeah, he's fairly nasty about them. And an old friend who feels that he was complicit by not stopping him or by allowing him to sort of perpetuate that behavior comes to visit him. I think that's what it's going to be about.
Gosh,
Who
that's
knows?
so interesting. And I feel so sort of honored to hear, be there at the beginning, like the first
Don't
sort of
tell anyone. Shh.
oh, um, what got you into writing? Was there an event in your life? Did you always want to be a writer? And that's from Shelley Stradley. Great question.
Okay, I have a really crazy answer to this. I don't know whether Americans got comics the way we did in the UK and Ireland. Like the Bunty was a comic. There's comics for girls. I know there's kind of Marvel comics and all that in the States, but there was comics for girls where there were stories about ballerinas or stories about school and boarding schools and the four Marys who were all at the same boarding school and that kind of thing. Well, I was first published when I was 9 years old because I wrote a letter into the Bunty comic and it was published. And that gave me the biggest buzz of my little childhood. And ever after that, I was chasing that dragon like it was heroin. I wanted to get that buzz again. So yeah, that's it. I know that's a crazy answer. And it took me another, 30, whatever, 37 years to do that. But yes. But I did have stuff broadcast on TV. I wrote some TV stuff, and I wrote some short stories, and I was shortlisted for a couple of things. I had an animation series made. I had done a lot for broadcast, but not for.
Mm,
But I wanted the print stuff. I wanted to write something that was my own.
mm. I mean, do you think presumably that experience fed directly into but did it feel like a very different experience when you first sat down to write your first novel?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, because you're your own boss. I mean, if it fails, it's down to you. If it succeeds, it's usually down to your publicity team. I have to say, you are doing a terrific job with this one. But if you haven't written a good book, then the publicists aren't going to want to publicize it. So you have to and your editors and the entire team at Simon Schuster and the entire team of Barnes and Noble who've chosen it. But the work is your own, and you can't blame anybody else if it goes wrong.
mm,
Um, so really, it's just you and the laptop for a long time, and then eventually it's you and your editor. But it's a very small group of people. Whereas when you're writing for TV, oh my God, there are layers and layers and layers of editorial, and then when they go to shoot it, for example, a bad lighting man can destroy you. How many times have you gone to watch something and it's just too dark and you can't see
yes.
people and they all look the same, so you
Well, they
just
got the
give
sound wrong, so it's like
they get the
what do you call it?
sound
Like the
wrong.
mumbles. You've got a case of the mumbles, so you can't hear them.
Yeah, there's so many things I have to watch with subtitles these days because I can't understand what they're saying because the sound quality is so bad. And yeah, so you like there's so many people who can wreck your work, but with a book, only you can wreck your book, you know? So
But I have to say, I think a book like this only has this success because the whole publishing team is publishing it with kind of everything they have. And that only happens having been in the publishing industry when you really love a book. And it is
oh, I
just
forget that. I always forget that you were in the publishing industry.
that's it.
So
You feel it. It's something. I actually, funny enough, I read Eleanor Oliphant. I used to work a day a week for a literary scout, and I'd go
okay.
in and read books like at that kind of early stage of the process when they were being submitted to publishers. And I remember reading that book and just getting the tingle. And
Did you discover her then?
oh, absolutely not. It had very much been discovered before that. But this was going to foreign publishers and
Okay.
like film scouts and things. And so this was one of the scouts that had received this manuscript that I was working for. I just remember thinking this is really special. And you only get that with certain books. And this book is just so special and so brilliant. And it kind of deserves to just fly, which it will, which it is.
Oh, thank you.
So I think on that note, it just leaves me to say, Liz, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much to our brilliant audience. Just had a message from Harry in the chat. Yeah, here we go. If you would like to purchase a copy of Strange Sally Diamond, it will be in any Barnes & Noble that you walk into, front of house, and it's also available on barnesandnoble.com, and it is the August Barnes & Noble Mystery and Thriller Book of the Month, and it is utterly brilliant. You just won't forget this book. It will stay with you for a really long time. Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lucy, and thank you to everybody who tuned in to look at me in Ireland in my kitchen. I tried to disguise the oven, but not very cleverly.
It's a lovely kitchen. I really love your tiles. I'm mesmerized by them. They're beautiful.
Thank you, everybody.
Great
Goodbye.
day. Bye.